No, whether it's chiseled David Beckham, no, he's not there, or someone more akin to, there he is, yep, there he is, or more smouldering, there he is, Idris Elba. We all have different likes and dislikes when it comes to finding people attractive, much more this one than that one for me. By a new scientific theory, it has confirmed that George Clooney is officially the world's most handsome face, using the golden ratio of beauty pie. Along with computer mapping, the Hollywood actor was found to have the best features. They say beauty is only skin deep, so let's dig a little deeper with Dr. Julia De Silva from the Centre for Advanced Facial Cosmetic and Plastic Surgery. Hello to you.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. How do you decide who's handsome?
Well, the format for this study was really to try and find an objective way of looking at something that's quite subjective. And we all know when we look at a beautiful or a handsome face, we can see that it's an attractive face. But the aim of this study was to really look, can we find an objective way of looking at something that's quite subjective? And for a long time, the golden ratio or the phi ratio has been something that's been used in many different types of architecture, engineering, painting, and these golden proportions, as they're sometimes called, can also be applied to the human face and give us something more objective to look at. So, well, in terms of the characteristics that make up our face, the eyes, the nose, the lips, the eyebrows, all of these definitive parts of the face, well, we can take measurements, say looking at the eye, looking at the proportion of the eye, the width of the eye relative to the height or opening of the eye, the proportions of the eyes in terms of how widely spaced they are. And we can take those measurements and apply them to other characteristics such as your nose, your lips, your eyebrows, and all of those elements. And we can take those and look at a proportion and compare that to the golden proportion.
Okay.
And that can give us quite an objective evaluation.
How do you decide what that is?
Well, the golden proportion has been with us for since the times of Socrates, and it's been looked at in terms of the most beautiful architectural buildings that were created hundreds of years ago. We can also look at some of the most beautiful paintings that have ever been done. Often, like the Last Supper, different measurements in terms of those proportions can be applied to the golden ratio, and that can also be applied to the human face.
Okay, so he is the most handsome man in the world.
Well, when we summate all of the different characteristics of the face and create an average, George Clooney comes up top. There's certain parts of his face that rate higher than other parts, and there are other handsome men who have certain characteristics that, say, rate higher than George Clooney, but taking an average of all his facial attributes, he does score the highest.
What percentage is he? 90-odd%, isn't he?
Over 95%.
Wow, that's amazing. So we thought we'd put this to the test because I think my little boy is more handsome even than George Clooney. We've got a picture of him. Here he is. There he is. How handsome is my little boy?
Well,
obviously he's really handsome.
So absolutely. I mean, obviously you're...
Did you use the theory on him?
We did. We took the photo that you provided, and of course the photo is not an ideal photo, and a higher quality photo would give us better quality results. But applying that, he scored very highly. He didn't score quite as highly as George Clooney.
Well, there's something wrong with your theory.
But he did score higher than 007, Craig David.
Did he?
So
higher than James Bond.
Some James Bond. So he does have some very good facial characteristics, and certainly his eyes scored very highly in terms of relative proportions. But of course, when we look at a human face, we can see attractive qualities.
Yeah.
And this really gives us like a tool which can be used to measure that in an objective way.
Okay, so we asked on Twitter whether people could, our producer put out a tweet to say, send us some pictures if you've got one and we can have a look. This character, often a contributor to our programme, there he is. Can we see it? There he is. How handsome is he?
Well, we haven't applied
the
golden ratio to him.
We've got some others as well. I think we've got Chris as well, haven't we? Oh, well, we don't have Chris, but you can have a look on our website as well and check him out. But when you just look at a face, that's enough of him. Let's look at the 10, should we, in total. When you look at a face, you can't do those proportions necessarily. So what am I looking at when I'm looking at a beautiful face?
Well, in a way, you're taking a step back from using science and looking at more like human characteristics. And in a way, if you ask that same question to 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different answers, because all of us as people whether it's our culture, our ethnicity, all of us favour slightly different
Yeah.
perspectives.
And this is Chris. He's another one of our regular contributors on Twitter. He's a very handsome man as well. And I suppose the point that we're making here is it doesn't matter what age you are, you can still be very handsome, beautiful. And can you still use the same theory when it comes to women?
Absolutely. So we can use the same principles when it comes to women. In a way, we can also use some of those principles in terms of beautification of the face. So, I developed a technique called the FI technique, which is a non-surgical facelift in which we use these proportions. We use non-surgical methods to enhance these proportions in normal people. And so where this could be useful, well, it's more of an objective way of looking at something that's quite subjective.
Okay. And I suppose they look like their mum as well sometimes, don't they? I would say that, wouldn't I? But okay, so it's in the eye of the beholder, but there is a mathematical process that you can go through as well, and you can use that for women too.
You can, yes.
I'm not going to ask. I'm just not going to ask. It's great to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on Sky News this afternoon. We appreciate it. Thank you. Quick look at the weather.